Hello and welcome to another episode of the Portrait Profit Show. I'm so glad that you're here with me this evening. We've got some fantastic panelists to go over the topic that we have today about lessons that you've learned, but I'll get to that here in just a moment. My name is Jim Landers, and my mission is simple. I help portrait photographers just like you make a fantastic income doing what they love. Each week on the Portrait Profit Show, you get tips and systems on the business side of photography designed to help you gain a mastery over marketing and sales, reducing the struggles that most photographers face so you can finally get what you deserve. You are in the right place. Welcome to the Portrait Profit Show. The Portrait Profit Show is brought to you by Digital Pro Lab and Landers Photography School. Go to digitalprolab.com so you can get some more information about Digital Pro Lab. Amanda and her team are fantastic. They will treat you right on the printing side. Oh man, and they are so good to the photographer community. Digitalprolab.com, and of course, Landers Photography School. That's me. So landersphotoschool.com to get more information on that, or just reach out to me directly, Jim at landersphotoschool.com. Yep, making it easy. Jim at landersphotoschool.com. All right, some housekeeping. Before leaving a comment, and yes, we definitely encourage comments and questions and hitting that like button and hitting that love button. Our panelists are going to see that. So do that for them. You can see going across your screen right here that we use a platform called StreamYard. And this causes us to be able to send this simulcast, this show, to multiple different places at the same exact time. We're on 5 different Facebook pages, 2 different YouTube channels, and 1 LinkedIn page. And we can't see you unless you do what you see going across the screen right now. Go to streamyard.com/Facebook. When you do that, it allows StreamYard to use your name. That way we can see who you are. Now, if you want to remain anonymous, well, skip that. Don't do that stuff. But that is how you cause us to be able to see you. And that's just how, it's just registration. And it's just for them. We don't collect the information. It's just so that we can see your name when you make a comment. All right. While you're doing that, I also want you to enter into the comments section right now, #live, letting us know that you're watching right now, #live. And if you're watching this as a replay sometime down the line, #replay. Enter in the comment section, #replay. But for those of you who are here right now, do me a favor, enter in #live. That way I know you're right here, right now, watching and enjoying this show. And I can see a handful of you have already done it. I can see Dave Dave, I'm glad you're here, and several others. We've got a lot of Facebook users this evening, and so I don't know if that means you want to remain anonymous. Hey, Ashley, I'm glad you guys are here. Man, good to be seen. So #live in the comments section right now. That tells us you're here, and I encourage you, comment often. Ask questions. We may not be able to get to every single question. We've got a list of questions that we're going to be going through, but if yours is a good one, we may just include it. So please enter in those questions and comment and hit that like button, hit that love button. You're going to hear some things this evening that you like. Let us know. It's called interaction. You like it when you get messages saying that you're doing things right. So that's all I'm asking for. Hey, Rick, glad you're here. All right. So we're I'd also want to encourage you to hit the share button. Let other people know about the Portrait Profit Show. This is something that we want everyone to know about. We want people to be aware that this show exists. We want more people to know more about the photography industry so that the whole industry is elevated. Something on the smallest end would be that prices get to the point where everyone can actually live off of the prices. People talk about living wage, and yet photographers are charging an amount that causes them not even to make minimum wage, and they're the boss. They're the ones in control. They blame others. They say, "Oh, the clients won't go for it." Hey, you're the boss. Stop making excuses. You'll learn those kinds of things, and they become normal and natural, and you don't even think twice about it. And you start attracting people who want that. That's a whole lot better type of person to work with. So, all right. I see a bunch more of you have let me know you're here, and I appreciate that. Rick, you're watching from Orlando? Cool. Glad you're there and glad you're here. Janice, glad you're here. Nice. I like hearing that. All right. So I'm going to bring on the panelists here in just a moment to talk about the lessons that they have learned. Some of them have been long coming. It took them a long time to learn. Others of them, there was some difficulty involved. No matter what, you get to hear the solutions to the problems that they have fixed without all the pain that they had to endure. Let me bring on those panelists right now. Let's bring them on one at a time. Let's see. Let's bring on Kathy and Tammy and Ray. Hey, you guys.
Hey,
Hi.
how's it going?
Hello.
Hello.
Howdy, howdy, everyone.
I'm so glad you guys are all here this evening. And I want to show a little appreciation. You have a life, and yet you chose to spend some of it tonight uplifting the photographer community. I know that you're busy. I know that you've got other things going on, and yet you decided that this evening you wanted to uplift the photographers who are watching the Portrait Prophets show. And I know that you do that on your own anyway. And this is just one more thing that you do. So I want to acknowledge that and thank you guys for being here this evening.
Absolutely.
My pleasure.
You're very welcome. Yes, it's my pleasure.
So I'm going to take you guys off, and I'm going to bring you guys on one at a time to share a little bit about who you are and what you do with the group. And I'm going to start off with Kathy. So I'm going to take Tammy off and Ray off for now, and just visit with Kathy for a moment. Hey,
Hello,
Kathy.
everybody. Hi.
So can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Absolutely. So I am a retired Navy. I took up photography. It was pretty much by accident. I know a lot of people had the passion for it before they started, and it was just something that was in them. I actually hated it. I absolutely hated it because the job that I had required me to be the photographer for our command. And I knew nothing about photography. I knew nothing about the triangle. I knew nothing. So when they gave me the camera, my pictures were coming out beautifully. I just thought I was good. I thought I was just a natural. But that wasn't the case because when we had another event, someone had changed the settings and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was so angry that I learned photography. That's how I got into this. And I found out it was so interesting and I fell in love with it. And since then it's been nonstop. I wake up thinking about photography. I started with landscape and then I went on to sports because you always have to find out what your passion is. And you're not going to know what it is right off the start. So I went from landscape to sports, then to street photography, and then to like journalistic photography and portraits and weddings and pet photography. And I've learned all these different things. And I found out that I like portrait photography. I love pet photography. I still like sports, but that's very hard to get into. I have had a picture of mine on an online magazine. It's also been in a newspaper. I'm constantly learning. I don't consider myself an expert. I consider myself a student because I'm always going on to Kelby One. I'm always looking at Creative Live. I'm going to YouTube. I'm asking friends. I have a mentor that teaches me. So I'm always open to learning new things. And I think that's one of the important things about being a photographer because there's something new just around the corner. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow. Lots of interesting, cool things. And thanks for sharing a little bit about that evolution of the changes of where you were and how you've grown over the years, how those interests have changed and how some of them have remained. So that's interesting. Thank you for sharing all that. Mm-hmm. All right, Kathy, thank you. And let's bring on Tammy. All right.
Hello.
Tammy,
Yes.
glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Absolutely. My name is Tammy Blalock. I have been in business since 2010. I've been a full-time photographer since 2013, and I became a certified professional photographer with the WPPI in 2018. I only shoot weddings and corporate live events. So I have two separate brands to do each of those functions. My Atta Girl photography company shoots all my wedding events, and my SA Events Photography shoots all my corporate gigs. Before becoming a professional photographer, I worked as a grocery store clerk, a telemarketer, a canvasser, which would like go out in neighborhoods and knocking on door to door to collect leads. I have been a US soldier, a paralegal, a marketing and social media manager, and a freelance web designer. And I often say that I wish I would have found this path, this career much earlier in life, but I've realized that all of the jobs that I have previously set me up for success for being an entrepreneur and a photographer. All of my careers before becoming a photographer have had a significant impact on what I do today for my clients and for my business. I strongly, just like Kathy, I strongly believe in continuing education, and I compete in international photo competitions regularly, up to 4 times a year with 5 different image comps. To date, I have won over 40 international awards, and I attend the WPPI conference in Las Vegas every year. And I also try to attend at least one in-person master level workshop. I've always said that education is key to giving your clients a enjoyable experience. And so I practice what I preach. I am just like Kathy. I think I'm going to be a lifelong student. Photography is so complex and so just wildly, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's such a complex subject that you can learn something. I learned something literally every single event I shot, whether it's in regard to how to set up a shot better or how to post-process it better, or just how to get my clients to engage with me during a shoot.
Wow. Very cool. Did you say 40 different competitions that you have won with your work?
So I haven't won 40
Or participated?
competitions.
Yeah.
I have won a few, but I have over 40 merits. So
Merits.
when an
Nice.
image merits in competition, it has to score an 80 or above. And scoring an 80 or above means that it is above a professional level. So it's better than an average professional photo.
Yeah, that is a totally different system. And talking to someone who's unfamiliar with it, that wouldn't really mean much, but that is a big deal to
Yes.
score an 80 or higher. It's just it's something that most people will never do their first time. It takes quite a bit of tweaking and effort to get it to the point where it's that good.
Yes. And just for reference, Jim, I believe I entered almost 60 images in International Photo Comp before I ever received one merit. So it took me a while to get to that level. It was very hard.
Man, so you push and you push and you push to make things work. I love it.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Tammy. I appreciate you being here. I'm going to bring on Ray to tell a little bit about him. I'll bring you back here in just a moment.
All right.
Let's see.
Hello,
Ray,
hello.
how's it going this evening?
Going great. Thanks, Jim.
Hey, can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Ray Crockett. I've been a professional photographer for about 34 years now. I started my photography career when I graduated from high school. My parents actually bought me a really nice camera for graduating high school. That was back in 1989. So you can do the math from there. And I immediately went on a trip for a whole month to the Soviet Union and traveled around all over the then Soviet Union. I got to go to the Kremlin, and all over the place. And I took my camera with me. I photographed, and I really got the bug. And then the next year, I joined the Marine Corps, and they sent me to photography school. I was a photojournalist in the Marines, and they also sent me to graphic design school, which helped me out. I progressed up through. I was the editor of a couple base newspapers, and I covered the Iraq War as a photojournalist. I had an M16 and 3 cameras with me. And then when I got back from Iraq, I started shooting weddings, and it took off so well that I ended up getting out of the Marines and have been self-employed as a photographer ever since. Shot well over 500 weddings, do a lot of different portraiture of all sorts, commercial photography. I've sent cameras up into outer space. I've done some pretty interesting, crazy things. I taught high school photography for several years. And now I'm kind of getting in a little bit more into the educator part of it. I used my GI Bill to get a degree in photography and also film production. And that's been very helpful. We added video to our business as well. And I just kind of plug along. I kind of low key. I'm at a point where I don't even advertise. It's all word of mouth at this point, and social media. We'll get into that. And just really enjoy photography in every aspect. I just soak up trying to learn every type of photography I possibly can and give my hand in it and do my best. And that's really the key to being a successful photographer. It's just never stop learning and never stop growing. Always go for that next great photo, and don't worry about what you've already shot, because you've already shot it. That doesn't count anymore. What counts is that next shot that you're getting. So,
Whew, that's a lot of stuff. That's awesome. And you've got a degree in photography. Not very many people have a degree. I have one, but how do you feel that it helps you in the real world?
well, here's the thing. What I did was I had already been a professional photographer for many, many years, and award-winning. I won 4 Thomas Jefferson Awards, which is kind of like the Academy Awards for mixed media art in the military. And I had a lot of experience, but I didn't have any sort of degree. So I really just got it as a personal challenge for myself, almost like a bucket list thing. It's nice to be able to say, oh, you have a degree. It's an Associate of Arts degree that I got with actually here at San Antonio College. They offered a photography program, and they were offering photography degrees at the time. After I graduated, they actually canceled that program. I think they were like, oh, I guess nothing else we can do now. But then I ended up going on to get my bachelor's in film production. So it actually, everything that I learned as a photographer carried forward to be able to go into film production. And actually, I even won a couple film festivals using the techniques and everything else that I had applied over the years. And then I apply all the knowledge that I've learned both in school and outside of school to every single shoot that I do. Every single. I don't go into a shoot just thinking, I've got this. This is easy money or anything like that. That's the worst thing you can do. You should go into it thinking, this is the only shoot that counts.
Well, I have the first question for our topic tonight of lessons
Sure.
I learned. And I want to start with you, Ray. So can you,
Okay.
I'm going to put it up on the screen so you and everyone else can see it. But can you share an example of when your efforts failed? When you put some work into something and it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, and what you did to fix the issue?
Yeah. Well,
Am I starting off with a tough one?
No. Okay. So when I heard you say it, it just sounded different than it. But the thought that came to mind, I remember I was shooting a wedding, and this was quite a while ago. And I always carried 2 of everything with me. So I had 2 flashes, 2 cameras, 2, I never go to a photo shoot with only 1 of anything. And for this very reason, I was just about to start shooting the ceremony, and I took a test shot, and my flash bulb in my flash exploded. I heard this pop. I started smelling smoke, and I was like, oh crap, well, there just went $500, the speed lights. So I took it off, and I grabbed the next one, and I put it on, shot the ceremony, and then I got through the formal shots. And by the end of the formal shots, my second flash did the exact same thing. And so now I had the whole reception to shoot with no external light source. And I ended up having to use the pop-up flash on the camera in order to shoot the entire reception. But I used some little tricks that I've learned over the years and everything else. I used my hand to direct the light sometimes and everything else. And I actually ended up using some of those reception photos, even though I was using a pop-up flash, which I was embarrassed to do. But, I got through it. You just keep going forward. You use the skills that you've learned to just keep pressing forward. And, in the Marine Corps, we call it adapt and overcome. And that's exactly what I did. I still carry 2 flashes with me because the chances of both going bad at the exact same time is that was astronomical. But it's all about having the skills to be able to shoot in an environment without relying on certain pieces of gear. That's really a big key to being able to be very flexible, I would say. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Equipment doesn't go bad very often, but it does. It absolutely happens. I know I've experienced it myself. There was one time where I had 8 sets of AA batteries because that's how I powered my flash at that point. And all of them went out. Now, I've been told it was because of the location, that it was haunted, that it just drained the batteries in my flash.
You never know. You never know.
So, who knows? It was called the Black Swan Inn. Some of you may have heard of it before. That was unusual. That's never, ever happened before or since. So, but I had, it went through 7 sets of batteries, I'd say within 15 minutes. And the last set actually made it throughout the rest of the wedding, which I was quite grateful for.
Speaking of haunted places, I actually shot a wedding in what was reported to be a haunted house. And when I was editing the photos, I was looking through them to see if there were any like specters in the background or anything. I never saw anything, but I was kind of hoping I would. Would have been a bonus.
Oh, that's funny. Go. Sorry, I took us off topic.
Yeah, no. Well, so I mean, the key to me is have multiple gear because you're going to have failure. But also be prepared to not have the gear and be able to shoot using no additional flash, just using natural light, which can be very handy to do. But then also,
I'm curious, since this is a business show, do you have any business experiences that have not gone the way you planned, and how did you fix them?
Well, okay. I had, when I first started and I was designing albums for couples, I didn't really have any restrictions on the album designs. And I had a bride that no matter how many edits I made to her album, she just wasn't satisfied. And after I'd say about the 11th edit, she was literally, I remember this specifically, she got to the point where she said, could I see this photo just just a quarter inch over this way? And I was like, I just cannot keep, you have to trust me as the one that's editing this to be able to, put something together. And she just was like, well, you gotta, and I said, well, she then said, well, why don't you just give me the photos and I'll just design it myself. And I was like, okay. So I gave her the photos, and I actually did it one up. I actually gave her the photo, the design. I gave her the design, and I said, here, if you want to play with it and everything else. And she was, she was a little frustrated that I didn't just continue forever to design her album. I'd probably still be designing it to this day. But and then what I did was I paid for her to have it printed, and she was fine. But then afterwards, what I did was and that smoothed things over with her, and she was satisfied, and she sort of understood, but she was just so particular that she just really wanted to have control, is really what it was. So I gave it to her. So then from then on out, what I did was I still would allow clients, because I know some photographers are just like, give them the album, there it is, you don't have any say. So what I would do is I would now say, okay, you can say 3 things in the album that you'd like corrected. So you get 1 round of edits with 3 things that you can point out, like, can you change this photo? Can you move this one over? And can you swap these pages? That I can do. And then I don't give them another proof. I just send it right to print. And that has alleviated, everybody loves the designs. I mean, I was the editor of a magazine and a couple newspapers. I mean, I have a lot of experience in doing layout and design and everything. So I'm confident in that. And everybody's loved the albums that I designed, but I just had to reel myself in to give some parameters. And I find that as long as you have parameters for clients and customers, they appreciate that and they respect it, and it makes everything go far smoother for everybody. So the lesson that I had to learn was to have limits and to have restrictions and to express them up front in the contract, so that way they know, and then everything's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Great. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You learn these things and you make adjustments as you go. So that's a good example. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask that same question now of Kathy. So Kathy,
Yeah.
how's it going?
Good.
So same question for you. And this is on the business side. Can you share an example of when your efforts failed miserably and what you had to do in order to fix the issue?
Right. So I had 2 things. One, I was hired to do they were getting remarried. There's this couple, they were celebrating their 40th wedding, and they wanted me to shoot their ceremony. And it was very simple. They had mass, and then they were just going to have the preacher. I just know it's not a preacher if they're Catholic, but have him just do a very, very, very small ceremony. And I was just going to shoot that, and then we were going to go outside and shoot some more. And completely my fault, even though I took the time. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get there. And this one of my policies, or something that I have for myself. If there's a wedding or anything like that, if it says it's supposed to start at 2, I'm there at 11:30 or 12. I want to get there early. I don't want to be stressed or anything, and I don't want my client to be stressed. So in this particular instance, the ceremony was it was on Randolph. And I got on Randolph and was completely lost. And I don't know if you've ever been on Randolph Air Force Base, but it makes absolutely no sense. And I was going down all kinds of streets and everything, and my GPS was like, well, I don't know. So I missed the ceremony. I was so angry with myself. And they were the sweetest couple. They were so sweet. And I tried to explain, I'm like, okay, we're going to make this work. I went inside. I'm like, this is what we're going to do. And I'm getting my lighting and everything ready, not realizing that the ceremony was over. I thought it was just about to start. So what I said was, look, wherever you want. This was 100% my fault. Obviously, you're not paying. I will go anywhere you want on any date at whatever time, and we will make this work. And all I could do, and I said we would do it for free, because this was not their fault. It was my fault, and I needed to make it right, which is what I did. And they were very grateful for it, and it worked out just fine. But sometimes you have to, especially when you make a mistake that big, you just need to make it right. You need to step back, own what you did, and do the best that you can to make them feel better and to make them feel that they're important. Because I know there's times when people get into the photography and they're just, okay, it's just a business. For me, it is not just a business. I want to capture memories and make sure that when they look at a photo that I've taken for them, that only positive thoughts come to mind. So even though I messed up, I made it right, and they were grateful for it. So,
ooh, that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've experienced similar things where things were messed up. Not that one in particular, but others. I mean, I have lost the images to a wedding once.
Wow.
It was. It's a short story, so I guess I'll tell it. But it was when I first switched to digital in 2002, the cards that we used were not solid state, and so dropping them ruins them. They were micro drives. They're just like the hard drives in your computer, just small, the size of the hard drives, or of the solid state drives now. But if you were to pull it out of your camera and drop it to the ground, I was leaving. I pulled the card out, it fell to the ground, and I wasn't able to I was able to retrieve some of the images off of it, but not a lot of them. That's a similar thing, because those images don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that. Luckily, I had more than one card that day, so the wedding itself, the ceremony was all there. It was actually just reception images that weren't there. And so if I were to choose what images wouldn't be there, it would be reception images, not the formal wedding.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah, we all have these experiences, and they're going to be different, but also, they're going to be relatively similar, and how we deal with them is important. And I think you did a good job of dealing with it. You were seeing it from their point of view. You were trying to be a solution seeker. You accepted full responsibility. You weren't blaming something or somebody else,
Nope.
which we find too often in this world today. So I personally appreciate how you handled that very difficult situation.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to ask the same question now of Tammy, and I'll bring you back in just a moment.
Okay.
All right, Tammy. Well, I think I've got you on mute. Let me see if I can fix that.
I muted because
okay.
My dogs were making a little bit of a noise, and I wasn't sure.
Did they want to be on camera? Did they have an answer to this question?
They're not in here right now. They left, but maybe if they come back.
Well, same question to you. Can you share an example of when your some business effort? I mean, it could be a marketing effort, it could be whatever. But that it failed. It didn't go according to plan. There was some frustration, maybe. But also, what did you do to fix it?
Yeah, so I've done all the things that I think most budding or beginning photographers have done. I have showed up to a shoot without my memory cards. I have went to Landa Library when we were supposed to go to Landa Park. And I have even deleted memory cards once before downloading them to my PC. Luckily, I was I was tethered to my iPad while I was shooting. It was a senior session. So I had all the basic JPEGs on my iPad, which I was able to deliver to the client, and they never knew the difference. But as far as business, I can think of two huge mistakes that I've made. One was in the very beginning of my business photography career, and one was recently. So I'll tell you about both of them. The one that I made early on was at a wedding, and it was the very first wedding that I was being paid to shoot. And I made the mistake of knowing nothing, basically nothing about my couple. So what I knew that they had met at a church camp, like as teenagers, and had a long courtship. What I didn't know is that their entire relationship had been celibate. I didn't know that they were very involved in their church, and I didn't know that they were very private or secret and embarrassed really easily. So we were in the bride's getting ready room, and I can't even remember, some song was playing, and the bride mentioned that she liked it. And it was kind of, if anyone who knows me knows that I am bound to make an off-color or slightly inappropriate joke at some point. But for this couple, when she mentioned the song that was playing, I said something that alluded to the fact that she will probably enjoy that song much more on her wedding night. It was some kind of like low, slow love song that I would refer to as baby making music. So when I said that to her, that she's going to enjoy this song much later in the evening after her wedding, she knew instantly what I was referring to, and she just became very embarrassed and kind of withdrew. So it took me about 10 or 20 minutes before I could get her back to a place where she was comfortable with me being in the room. It was very embarrassing. I was mortified that I said that. And I instantly knew that I should have known more about my couple's personal lives. The more recent mistake I made was when I created my second brand that shoots corporate gigs only. I was also creating all my workflows and what forth in my customer relationship management software. I use 17 hats. And this was a job for one of the really huge car manufacturers in the United States. And due to my workflow not being laid out, and also being slightly intimidated when I discovered this, I never got them to sign a contract. And then again, once I realized that, we were like a week out before the event, and I realized I hadn't got them to sign a contract with me, I kind of just let it go, thinking, oh, this is that car manufacturer, I'll be safe and I'll be okay. And it ended up that I had a really hard time because they had agreed to the terms to pay half down and the remaining balance 10 days before the event. They never paid me that second half. And I eventually had to hire an attorney to help me recoup some of that loss, which I think the attorney, their fee was like 20 or 25% of that balance. And it was a learning experience. So, and that was actually the first time. I had never had a client sign a contract, but now even if it's God, I'm going to ask him to sign a contract.
Oh man.
Yes.
it's interesting how that didn't used to be a thing. Contracts. I absolutely recommend that everyone do that every time now.
Absolutely.
But 80s and 90s, I went full time in 1991. It was just verbal. You just talked about what you were going to do, and you did what you said you were going to do, and that was it. There wasn't any contracts. Now, I did start doing contracts for weddings somewhere in the 90s, but that was it. I only did it for weddings. And that was just because there's so many variables of a wedding. There's a lot of places where misunderstandings could occur.
Yeah.
And so, man, yeah, you've dealt with some doozies.
Yes. Yes. It was a learning experience. And I promise you, Jim, I will never let that slide again.
Yeah, I believe you. And you guys watching, just skip it. Just do the contracts. They're really easy to do nowadays.
Yes.
It did used to be a pain to do because you had to do it in triplicate and you had to do carbon paper and all that kind of crazy stuff. And now that's stuff that some people are going to look at me thinking, what you talking about?
Yeah. Not having that contract prevented me from recouping my attorney's fees because there was no contract. That is a clause in my written contract that if I have to sue you for non-payment, you're paying my attorney's fees. So I missed out on that because I neglected to get that in writing.
Yeah. So, and that's another thing about when people are receiving money, and you chose to do it ahead of time. And I would recommend that everyone who's watching do that, no matter what it is, get it done ahead of time. And besides, in my opinion, it's just kind of I've come across those who want the payment the day of, as far as an event like a wedding. That seems really inappropriate to be bringing up money on the most important day of their life. I mean, you really got to not think this through to think that the day of is a good idea.
Yes. And who has time for that on a wedding day?
Yeah. Mine was a month beforehand.
Yeah.
I paid for it a month. In fact, the majority of my clients just paid for it right when we signed.
My policy for weddings is to be paid in full 30 days prior, but for corporate events, it's 10 days prior.
That's one where I think there's even more gray area because they have their own rules where they paid 90 days after. Well, we don't work that way.
Yeah. Sometimes I've ran into that. But I always tell them I prefer to be paid beforehand. I don't want to do 30 days net. I don't want to do 90 days net. I know that you have a credit card that you can use.
Exactly.
So I always demand that I'm paid prior to my events.
Smart. And you get that by learning it or hearing someone like Tammy telling you.
Yes.
So, all right. So I've got the next question for you. Client interactions shape your reputation. Can you share an experience where a new client turned into one of your biggest fans?
Yes, I can. I once shot a wedding where the entire wedding was DIY, and the venue that they were having their wedding at was not the most attractive venue I've ever shot at. And when I say that, it was like they decorated it with their eyes closed. I mean, there were TVs hanging, mounted to the wall with all the wires just draping down to the plug, mixed matched animal print curtains. The venue was, it was also like a dude ranch or something. And it was just in general disorder. It was not by far, it was probably the ugliest venue I've shot at in my career. And so I just really worked hard to make a personal connection with that couple. I maintained constant contact with them before their wedding and after. and I just made it a point to get to know my clients and just to keep a very personal connection with them throughout. And that bride is one of my biggest brand ambassadors on social media. Almost anytime I post something, she's there cheering for me, liking, commenting, sharing her experience about my process and or my wedding albums. So I think it was just like the key there was just giving my clients a very memorable, streamlined, efficient, personal experience.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, those are really good, and what does that do to boost your confidence in the work that you do when you have someone like that? These fans that think Tammy is fantastic.
Yes, I love them. I wish I could turn every client into a brand ambassador, but unfortunately, I have not figured out how to do that yet. But you're right. It helps a lot. Like it gives you brand credibility, and it boosts your confidence.
Nice. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Tammy.
You're welcome.
I'm going to ask that same question now of Ray. So, Ray, tell me about client interactions. We know how they shape your reputation. So share an experience of where a client is now a fan of yours.
Okay, well, I don't have a specific one because what I do and what I'm going to share, I do all the time, and it's done it many, many times. I have lots of couples. In fact, I just shot a wedding this Saturday, and I shot her twin sister's wedding 4 years ago, and I shot their friend's wedding 7 years before that, and all three couples were there this Saturday. And it's because I think in part because I like to really build a relationship with the couple right out of the gate, get to know them. And then one trick that I'll share that I like to do is like when I'm doing portraits, like if I have a couple that's getting married and I do their engagements and then their bridals, or if I'm doing senior portraits or any sort of portraits whatsoever, what I do is I show them photos right out of the camera so that they can start to go, oh, wow, that's amazing, because they start to see themselves in a different light, and it starts to boost their confidence. Another thing that I do, and this is really the key, this is one thing that I like to do, is I like to show the poses, whether it's a female, male, does not matter. I will get up there and I will strike the most feminine pose, just showing how to pose with hands, that sort of thing. And what it does is it kind of bonds you to the client in a way, because you're showing them that you're not asking anything of them that you're not willing to do yourself. And it also gives them a feel for what it is that you want. And then you allow the space for them to kind of make it their own and tweak it to where it feels comfortable for them. And another thing that it does is if you have an idea in your head and you're trying to direct them, if you do it yourself, you can actually see if it is even going to work. Because, sometimes you get ideas in your head and that work in your head, but then when you actually physically try and do it, it doesn't quite work out. So if you're actually physically showing them, you're kind of able to figure it out yourself, and then they have an idea of what to do it. But doing that, it makes them laugh and it builds this rapport with them. And then by the time you're done with the photo shoot, they feel great about themselves. They feel connected with you. And then they tell your friends, because you're not just selling a photograph, you're selling an experience. Really, that's what brings back the repeat business and also the word of mouth, is because anybody can take a series of photos for somebody. What gets them to come back and what gets their friends to come to you is that, one, you gave them something that was unique and different than what they can get from another photographer. That's why they're coming back to you. And also because of the connection that they made with you. I have a couple that I've shot I think I shot their wedding like 12 years ago, and I've shot their daughter growing up. Every year they come back for family portraits, and I shoot her. Now she calls me Uncle Ray, and she comes up and she hugs me every time, and she's excited to see me. And it's because I've built this rapport with them, this connection with them, and that is absolutely gold and cannot be, actually it's worth more than gold, honestly.
Yeah, those are good examples. Building rapport is huge. Having that, it makes you feel good for that girl to come up and give you that hug, because you've built a relationship, because you care, because they have recognized that you care, and they're going to share that with others. That's it. It's one of those great experiences that we get to have as photographers. Thank you for sharing that, Ray.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask the same question now of Kathy. Whoops. Kathy.
Yeah.
Kathy, can you tell me your thoughts on client interaction and what you maybe an experience that you have of a client that's turned into a fan of yours?
Absolutely. So I have a friend whose daughter wanted to have pictures of her family. So it was her husband, her 2 children, their children, and they wanted to have it at the Hay Street Bridge, which is a beautiful place to shoot. And so we went there, and I had all my gear. We showed up. They were there on time so we could get the sunset, and we had a blast. They had so much fun. I had them laughing. Just like Ray was saying, when you pose them, they loved that I would pose them, because they didn't know what to do, because they've had people come up, photographers saying, oh, just do whatever you want. And they're like, well, I don't know what to do. So I made sure that, okay, this is what I want you to do. Put your hand here, do that. In the meantime, I'm telling them jokes. We're laughing. They're having a great time. So we took the pictures. I gave them the pictures later on, and they loved them so much that they made one of the shots, the family shot, into a quilt. So the picture of the photo is on the quilt, and they put it on pillows. That they loved it so much, and I was so honored by that. Fast forward, now she contacts me again, and she goes, I want to take another picture. This one is going to be of my mom, my brother and his kids, and me and my kids. And I said, okay, absolutely. And she says, but this is what I want. I want to have a picture frame, and I want my mom to be in one picture frame, my brother and I to be in another, our kids in another, and then their kids. And we want the picture all together. Can you do it? Absolutely, I can do it. I had never done anything like that in my life, but I was going to make it work. So they came over to my house. I turned my garage into a studio. We did that. And I said, that's not all we're going to do, because I want to have more pictures of you guys. I want you guys to have more memories. So I had one of the grandsons. I said, every time that my light flashes, I want you to create a pose, change up your pose. And he was a little ham, so he loved it. So he was posing and everything. And then one of the daughter, she had a son, and he didn't want to be in the picture, so he's pressing his hand against her face. So I got that shot. So I have all these wonderful shots, and I gave that to them, and they loved them. Fast forward, their uncle is having his 60th birthday. So my client called me. He says, Kathy, can you do this? Absolutely. So I shoot her uncle's birthday. Go further. She contacts me again. Now we want to have a family photo of everybody, and we want it on the Hay Street Bridge. And I'm like, okay, absolutely, we will do it. Unfortunately for this one, during this time, her uncle passed away. So we obviously had to cancel it. But what made me, I don't want to say it made me, well, it did make me feel good, is that they're having a celebration of life for him. and they invited me to the celebration of life. So that says, to me, that says a lot, that they, not only they trust me to take the pictures of their family, to capture those memories for their family, but that they include me in something so personal. You know, they think that much of me that they would include me in something so personal. So that's probably my favorite of what's happened so far. I've had other clients that have contacted me, and they've given my name to somebody. Oh, you've got to go to Kathy to take your picture. You know, so, and how much they love my work, and that they're always going to come back to me to shoot something for them. So, like Tammy had mentioned, you know, it's kind of, it's an honor to have somebody do that, or rate. It's an honor that somebody thinks so much of you, and they trust you enough to capture moments that are going to last forever in their life. So
you have become family.
I've become family. I am family now.
I love it, Aunt Kathy.
Aunt Kathy, yes. Yeah, Uncle Ray and Aunt Kathy.
That's right. That's exactly what I was thinking. Oh, man. Thank you for that, Kathy. I appreciate it. I'm going to ask you the next question.
Oh, okay.
Pricing's a big deal.
Mhm.
Pricing is often a reason why photographers fail, whether they understand that's the case or not. It often is. I've come across many photographers that have a price that's so low, it's not even possible for them to get to a point of profitability. And they are unaware, and they thoroughly believe that if they raise the prices, that they will not have any more business, which isn't true. So did you experience any difficulties along your journey, along your path? And how did you get to your current prices?
Well, actually, that's something that I could continue to struggle with. I have upped my price. And I think one of the reasons that people don't up their price is because we don't know what our worth is as far as our photography. Like, okay, if you're just starting out, can I charge that much when I'm just beginning? Because I remember that was my question. And so deciding that, yeah, you earn the right. You're good enough where you can ask a certain amount. And if they don't like the price, that's okay. Then that just means that they weren't for you. And I remember one thing, Jim, you actually mentioned this. You told me about this. We had a one-on-one, and you mentioned to me that if you charge a low price, your client is going to think that they're going to get substandard quality. But if you charge a price it doesn't have to be the highest, but if you charge a reasonable price, then the clients feel that they're getting their money's worth. And I think that's one of the things that we all have to remember, is that we can't sell ourselves short. So with my pricing, I actually put it on my my website, so people wouldn't have to ask me, well, what's your pricing? Well, this is what I have on my website. I'm charging this much, for 30 minutes. I'm charging this much for 2 hours. So they know exactly what they're getting. And one of the hardest things I know for me is talking about money, especially when it's something that you're so passionate about. I mean, if I could afford it, I would like to just take pictures and not have to worry about it. But in the real world, we all have to make a living, so you have to charge. So having it on the site, so you don't have to really mention what's going to cost this much, or be put on the spot, it makes it much easier. Also, if you have it set, then you can just say it too. So you don't have to think about it. This is what I'm going to charge. If you want a 2-hour session, it's going to cost you like $1,000. And if they say no, then they say no. I actually had a person that contacted me, and it was something that I had never done before. So I did not have it on my website as a pricing. So I decided, okay, the travel, taking the pictures, the editing, all of that's going to cost. And it was going to be something that I would be doing twice a month. So I said, okay, if I'm going to be doing this twice a month, then I'm going to charge $500, for the session, because it was only like a 2-hour session each time. They never got back to me because it was too much for them. And I'm like, that's okay. Then that means I wasn't for them. So obviously the pricing differs, but like I mentioned, if you have it set and you don't cheat yourself and lowball yourself, then I would say go as high as you can. And then if you realize that you're not getting any calls, you may have to lower it a little, but eventually you will get to the price that you need or that you want. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. It's interesting how pricing plays such a role, and it's not that it eludes any of us. What eludes us is the right way to do it. We all know that pricing is an important variable, and I appreciate you bringing up the conversation that we had, a few years ago, and pricing. It's interesting when I see those pricing questions come up on like social media. What I'll see often is, how do I price something? What is the scoop here? How do I handle it? And people answer that question from their own point of view, but that's not helpful. The bottom line is pricing is just a tool to help you get what you want. If it's not helping you get what you want, then we have to change it. And so if it's not causing you to be profitable, that's something that we want. Well, then we have to make a change somewhere. It doesn't necessarily mean it's in the pricing amount. It could be in the quantity. You may choose to do a higher quantity in order to get the profit that you want. But bottom line is, it's a mathematical equation, and it has nothing, not in portrait photography, in other types of photography it does, but it has nothing to do with what other photographers charge. Nothing. Weddings, when it comes to portraits, has nothing to do with what other photographers charge. When there's some like school photography, that's portrait work, so yeah, it does matter there. And in some commercial work, it matters. But in regular portrait work, where it's one-to-one, you and your client, it has nothing to do with what the next photographer charges.
Right.
The only thing that matters is, does this help you get down the road you're traveling? Because if it holds you back, it's the wrong tool, and pricing is just a tool. How do you feel about all that?
I think that's right. I think also, I know when I first started out, one of the things, I was reading this book, and one of the things that it said is, when you go out, look at what the other photographers are charging and average it out. And I'm like, okay, that's okay, but no, it didn't really work for me. But I think for some people it might, but for me, I'm like, no, I'm like you said, it's between you and your client and what you feel that is the right price for you to charge, as long as you're profitable and you can make a living and you're not, living on the streets because of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Kathy. I appreciate it. I'm going to ask that same question now of Tammy. So, Tammy, can you give me your thoughts on pricing? I'll put that question back up just so everybody can see it. But pricing is often the reason why photographers fail. Have you experienced any difficulties along your path when it comes to pricing, and how did you get to where you're at now?
Yes. Who hasn't had difficulty with their pricing structure? I think the most difficult time I had when I was first starting out, and I just randomly picked I want to make this much per hour, and I didn't know how to substantiate that number. Had no idea. However, over the last 13 years of being in business, I have learned what a pricing calculator is. And I visit that probably once or twice a year, just to make sure that everything is still aligned. But basically, I just take the number of the amount of money that I want to make annually. I add on top of that any overhead that I'm going to have to run my business. And then I divide that by the amount of times I want to leave my house to shoot an event. And after I do that, I always make sure that I'm mostly aligned with other photographers that I think are in my same skill set, my same caliber. But I don't let that determine my prices. I just make sure I'm somewhere in the ballpark of my competitors per se.
Perfect. That makes total sense. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to come to the answer, but it's not a feelings kind of a thing.
Right.
It's actual. There's real variables here that have to be considered in order for us to use this as a tool to help us get where we're going. And so, thank you for that perspective. I like that, and I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, I got the same question now for Ray. Let's bring Ray on. So, Ray,
Hello.
tell me about pricing. I'm sure you've experienced some difficulties, some
Yeah.
time that you spent thinking about it. So, tell me about the path and where are you today?
Yeah, pricing is probably the biggest beast in the business. Really, is trying to figure out what you're going to charge. What are you worth? What are they willing to pay? And what I ended up doing was, if you charge too little, then if you're a photographer just starting out and you're charging a very small amount, then in order to make any sort of profit, like Jim said, you're going to have to be shooting a lot, which is going to affect the quality of your work, because then you're choosing volume over quality. And so you either have to pick, as far as I'm concerned, either are you going to do quantity or are you going to do quality? And pricing can help you establish how much you're going to be shooting. Because if you say charge, I'll just pick an arbitrary number, $20,000 to shoot a wedding, you might only shoot one wedding every 6 months or something. But you shoot 2 of those a year, you made $40,000. If you're charging $300 for a wedding, you're going to have to shoot a heck of a lot more weddings, and you're not going to have as much time to edit the photos and everything else. So I try not to shoot too many weddings. That was one of the biggest mistakes that I made early on, was I just would book any date. And one week in an 8-day period, I shot 5 weddings. And on another weekend, I shot 3 weddings in a row on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. By the time I was done, I was just so exhausted. And I was making good money, but then I had to edit all these photos, and it just really affected, really at that point, it affected my time, because I would be staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning editing, because I didn't want it to affect my quality. But ultimately, it can affect your quality when you just start to get too tired and everything else. And so I raised my prices in order to kind of shrink down how many weddings that I was doing and still be able to make a profit. And you have to play around with it. I played around with it for years. Honestly, it's kind of something that you always have to keep readdressing, because the market keeps changing. Clients keep changing how much they're willing to spend. And as technology changes and overhead changes, you have to keep readdressing your prices. And it's just something that you have to do. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Ray. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Good
honestly,
perspective.
pricing for me has always been a little bit of a struggle, because people tell me, my wife tells me, she's also an amazing award-winning photographer as well, but she's constantly telling me how amazing I am and all, and I'm like, oh great, but it's hard to see it for yourself and put a price on your own time. So I think what they were suggesting, as far as using pricing calculators to kind of do all that, I've played with that a little bit, but it's been a little bit of a struggle for me on this.
Well, a pricing calculator is a good thing, but it's got one incredibly important variable that's missing, and that's let's make this an example I give all the time in my classes and with these. Your life is we can make an analogy of life as being a road trip. We have defined where we're going. There's something that causes us to say, I want to go to fill in the blank. Maybe you have a friend that's there. And so you're going to meet them at a specific time. So you've got a location, a destination that you're going. You have a time that you want to get there. You know where you're at. And so therefore you've given yourself potential to be successful. You know what time to leave. You know if you can stop at Buc-ee's along the way. If you're in Texas, if you guys aren't in, if I know some of you who are watching aren't in Texas, so that may not mean anything to you. But if you're from Texas, you know what Buc-ee's is. You know whether you have time, and if you want to go to Buc-ee's, you're going to leave a little bit earlier so that you can do that, so you can make it happen. Those pricing calculators don't define the end result. They're only talking about the now, which is fine. Except it's so crazy and complete that it causes you to still be frustrated and still not be able to find the answer that you need. You have to start by defining, where are we going? What time do we need to be there? What are the variables that we have to consider, and plan a path to get there? And then the pricing calculator works. So that's the variable that most people are missing, at least in my experience. I work with people all the time on pricing, and can get them their exact numbers that will cause them to reach their goals, because I ask the right questions based on experience. I didn't know what questions to ask when I started. It took years before I've been doing this for 30 years. So therefore it took a long time to get to the point where I understood this myself. But I do now, and so that's why I'm able to help. And so, yeah, those pricing calculators, they're fantastic, except there's an important variable missing. And so that's why we still feel a little uneasy with them. Right at first, I think we feel kind of confident with them if we haven't experienced them before. But when we experience that not working and other variables kind of falling apart, then we might start, pushing and trying to find out why. Others of us quit and leave our passion, and I wish they wouldn't do that. It's just a variable that they haven't found yet. So thank you for your perspective on that. I appreciate it, Ray. All right, so we have a very short period of time left. I'm going to get one question in, and then but I want you to also follow it up with some closing thoughts. Sure. And so I'll let each one of you answer this last question, and then follow it up with some thoughts that you have on the show today. And so that final question is, let's choose one. I've got a bunch that are here, so I'm just going to ask the very next one about time management. So time management is an area that we all need to improve. Can you share a workflow enhancement that's made a difference in your world?
Yeah, well, actually, this actually segues directly as to what we were what I was just talking about, is about managing the time by how many shoots you do. The more shoots you do, the more watered down your time is going to be, or you're just going to be working 24 hours a day and not getting any sleep. So if you want to actually have time for a life, then you have to decide how much you want to shoot. And when I'm editing, I try not to take, I don't like to take any shortcuts. I like to take my time on the editing. I like to go through every photo, even if I know a photo was maybe a little bit soft focus for whatever reason, or that you never know, you might be able to do something with it, turn it into black and white or something like that can really make it more artistic. I like to take my time on that. So instead of shooting a whole bunch and then having less time to edit, what I do is I just shoot less and then make sure that I have the time that I want in order to really go in and meticulously edit the photos so the client's going to love them and be happy with them. And the more you add on to your plate, the less time you're going to be able to give for each individual client. And so it's just a matter of really cutting back on how much you shoot to the point where you find that perfect balance. And never, if you find yourself skimping on the quality just because you need to get this done because you have 3 more projects piled up that you have to get edited, and people are starting to go, hey, where's my photos? Then you're probably shooting too much. And then at that point, if you need to make more money, then you might take a look at adjusting the prices like we were talking about just a few minutes ago. Because ultimately you don't want to give up on your quality. That is what brings people back, and that is what is going to keep moving you forward more than anything else. Now, my last words for everybody out there, words of wisdom, would be to always keep pushing yourself and look for that next amazing photo. Don't rely on your portfolio to get you clients. Everybody can take one great photo and put together a portfolio of one great photo from, you know, a bunch of different weddings and show something really nice. But it's about being consistent and about pushing yourself constantly. If you're shooting the same thing over and over and over again at the same locations with the same poses, then you're not challenging yourself. And it's just going to become a repetitive, boring job like any other. And then what's the point of being a photographer? It's an art, and you should enjoy it, and you should challenge yourself. And that's where you find your best photographs, is when you challenge yourself and you push yourself to do something different and not the same thing over and over and over again. And if you do that, you will always grow as a photographer, and your clients will appreciate it, because you're not giving them the same canned stuff that you gave them the year before, or you gave their friends, or anything like that. And your portfolio can grow, and so can your business and your talent and your skills and everything else. So that is the most important thing that you can do, is continue pushing.
Yeah. Keep going, keep pushing, keep on keeping on. I like it.
Yep.
Thank you, Ray. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Of course, man. Glad you're here. I'm going to bring you all on in a moment, but I want to hear from Kathy and Tammy about their answer to this question and their closing thoughts. So I'll see you in just a moment.
Hi.
Let's see. Let's bring on Kathy next. Kathy.
Hello, Jim.
So tell me about your thoughts on time management, or just if you want to spend this time with your closing thoughts, you're welcome to do that too.
Well, just very quick, as far as the time management, a lot of things that Ray said were spot on. The only place where I kind of differ is because I was doing the same thing. I was editing everything. If I had a shoot and I took 1,000 pictures, I was looking at 1,000 pictures, and I was getting to a point where it was my quality, I can't say my quality, because my quality was always number one, but I was getting angry. I should say I was getting angry because I'm like, oh my God, I'm editing all these things. Well, one of the things that I've done, and I had to trust it because I don't give up control easily. I started using what's called Aftershoot, and I just put the pictures in there and it calls it for me. And because it's done that, it has helped me so much, because I just had a shoot this past Saturday. I took about 800 pictures. It called it for me, and it brought it down to about 200, because I think like all of us, we take a couple of shots, shots of the same scene. And of course the blurry ones and all that, it took care of all of that for me. Now I still had to go back in and I look at all those other pictures, the 200 plus that it said were fine. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to cut that down. But it helped me so much, where before I would spend days, because I just want everything perfect on every single shot. Even if it was blurry, I want it perfect, that I was driving myself crazy and I was losing the joy. So that has helped me a lot. Also having a fantastic filing system. So online, what I do, once I get my pictures, I put them, I create 4 folders. So I have a raw folder, a JPEG, a clean, and a signed. So I take the raw, I put it into Lightroom, I do what I have to do. All the pictures that I say are perfect and they're good to go. I put those in the clean folder. If I want my signature on it, then I create it and put it in the sign folder. So this is a system that works for me. My folders are named, so I have a wedding folder, I have a graduation folder, I have a sports folder, I have it all broken down so it makes sense to me. So and that's one of the key things. Make sure that it makes sense to you. Make sure your system works best for you. And as a closing thought, this is something that I struggle with all the time. Because I want everything to be perfect, I can make myself crazy. And I can say, oh my gosh, that's a horrible picture. And other people may see it and say, oh, that's a really nice picture. And I'm like, no, do you see where I got this wrong? That's one of the things. If you are like me, if you are a photographer like me, we need to stop doing that. Give yourself grace. Okay. Let yourself breathe. So I had a shoot where I was at a wedding. It was about a week or so ago. And I was so hard on myself. I'm like, all my pictures are horrible. They're terrible because I couldn't feel it. I wasn't feeling my shots. And it wasn't until I got into a better headspace where I could step back, look at my pictures and say, these aren't bad, Kathy. You did a good job, and actually give myself credit. So when you start to get like that, please just take a step back, pat yourself on the back, tell yourself you did a good job, and keep going. As far as like for criticism, one of the things that I've noticed that, and we all do this or have it done to us, we could put a picture up and somebody will criticize it and say, oh, you should have done this and you should have done that differently. Well, they're basing that off of their style, not yours. I've seen pictures where I'm like, oh, I don't particularly care for that. But I'm like, but that's not my style. That's that person's style. So look at it. I'm going to look at their picture the way they may see it. So if somebody critiques your picture, okay. If somebody criticizes your picture, take it with a grain of salt and let it go. Because I had an instant, just real quick, I had signed up for a competition, a print competition. The photo that I had submitted was it was a protest in downtown San Antonio. There was a line of police officers, and then there were protesters on one side. So when I looked to see this, one police officer in this line turned back and looked at me, and I snapped a shot. Well, the shot was not, it wasn't perfect, so it was kind of blurry, but I didn't care because the feeling is what I was going for, not the perfection, not the technique. So when I entered it in the competition, one judge could only see the technique. That's all that he saw. Everybody else saw the emotion. So when somebody is critiquing your work or criticizing your work, that's what I mean. Take it for what it's worth. Let it go, because it's just their opinion. And the main thing, and I said it before, give yourself grace. Forgive yourself if you've done something wrong. Pat yourself on the back when you do it right.
Yes. That's good. Yeah, you're right. The criticism, the ideas that come from others are based usually on their point of view. They may not be open-minded at that moment. They may not know your situation. There's a lot of reasons why the critique that you might receive is not ideal or not what you want to hear, or lots of different variables. And so we need to, before we give a critique, consider that there are variables that you just don't know, which is really impossible, but at least have that mindset. And then as we receive critiques, we know that they can't possibly know our variables, and to receive them from that point of view too, making everybody happy and everybody smile and letting things just roll off our back when they don't need to bother us. So yeah, fantastic. And you mentioned about making things quicker so that you can spend time with the things that are important to you. I use and recommend a competing one to the one you mentioned called Filter Pixel. And the reason I think it's the best is because it does something that the others don't do, including the one that you mentioned. And that's they don't use your own computer resources. So if you've got an older computer, especially, for instance, mine's 5 years old. Mine's from 2018. And so the resources on my computer are at max already, pretty much, not necessarily, but the cloud computing from Filter Pixel makes it so that nothing is being stored on your computer. There's no massive files that keep on backing up and filling up your hard drive that you have to go back and delete later. That doesn't exist because everything's on the cloud. So that's why I recommend Filter Pixel for that purpose. But the bottom line is that it's saving you time. It culls your work for you, and it helps with the artwork if you use both of those tools. And they're actually coming out with some additional tools that are pretty exciting as well. So yeah, using tools like that to help get rid of incredibly time-consuming things so that you can focus your attention on the things that you love most, your clients, your photography, your family, things that aren't necessarily related to photography. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Kathy. And thank you for being here today and giving us your gift of time and experience and sharing your knowledge with us.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, I'm going to bring you back here in just a moment with everybody, but I'm going to let Tammy have the last word for her closing thoughts. So thank you, Kathy. All right, Tammy.
Hello.
You get the last word. I don't know how you feel about that.
I feel okay with that. I don't have a choice, right? So to answer the question, in terms of time management and things that I've implemented into my workflow to help me have more time so that I can walk my dogs, ride my bike, go camping and whatnot. I'm also using AI for a number of things. I started out, well, first of all, I do use After Shoot to Call. And just like Kathy, I double check that because it's not flawless yet, but I am hanging on and hoping for the day that it does become perfect. To edit, I started out using Imagen, but recently, within the last couple of months, I've changed over to using, it's called Things, I believe. It's by Develop. So Develop offers all the presets for Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw, I think. But they also have this software that it plugs right into Lightroom. So you do your edits right within Lightroom, and you can help train it to edit to your style. I also use AI to write social media captions because at this point, after 13 years of trying to caption every Instagram post, every Facebook gallery, I am captioned out. So I really appreciate that I can just jump on Chat GPT or within Tailwind. For any Tailwind users, there's a beta ghostwriter portion of Tailwind now that will help you write emails, subject lines, Instagram captions, Pinterest posts, you name it. There is a little plugin on Tailwind for you to use. And CRM. A CRM has helped me get a lot of my time back. I'm currently using 17 Hats. For instance, my wedding workflow is over 100 different steps. A lot of those are emails that I send out to my couples as their wedding approaches. I try to keep in touch with them, every 4 to 6 weeks. So my CRM helps me do that efficiently. And then lastly, I will say that outsourcing has helped me with my time management. I have not actually outsourced anything yet, but I am in the process of looking for a social media manager. So I'm looking at people's profiles, and I've interviewed a few people on Fiverr and Upwork to try to find that perfect social media person that I can just turn them loose, let them go, and they'll be able to do everything for me, because that is a huge time suck for me. And then real quickly, I just wanted to go back and say that for editing, for headshots and like beauty or glam type of portraits, Evoto, EVOTO is an excellent editing tool that I have started using in my post-processing workflow. As far as closing comments, I just want to say that to any photographer, whether you're just starting out, whether you're planning to start tomorrow, or whether you have been in this business for 30 years, like Jim and Ray, education, certification, or a degree and competition will really help you stand out from your whoever you perceive as to be your competitor. Not many photographers take advantage of education, certification, or international image comp, and you learn so much doing those three things. Plus, it offers you the ability to stand apart from your photographer or your competitor photographers. And I feel that it helps me get hired more often than not. A lot of couples don't really perceive the value in a photographer becoming certified and educated other than from YouTube University. But once you explain to them how it works, I think it helps you stand out and apart from your competitors.
I totally agree. And I call YouTube University too, or just sometimes YouTube U, because it is a fantastic source for what I call secondary information,
Yes.
meaning that you already have to know the question in order for it to be valuable, because you have to enter something into the search category.
Right.
So formal education doesn't require that you ask any questions. It requires that that it is a structured environment that is sharing things that you wouldn't have even known to question. And
Exactly.
so that's why I think YouTube is fantastic for when you have a question, but it doesn't do a good job of receiving questions and getting responses. Teachers do, and in a formal learning environment has a structured learning environment that causes you to learn things that you didn't even know you were supposed to learn. And so whenever I see self-taught, I think, oh, bless your heart. And it's not done in a rude or mean way. What it says is your teacher doesn't know the subject because it's you. So you're choosing a teacher who knows nothing about the subject, or who knows very little, or who knows the same as you, because it is you.
Right.
So you're not choosing your teacher very well if you're choosing yourself as the teacher. So self-taught is fine. And in a lot of ways, we do need to self-teach, because it's too expensive to have everything helped. But to have nothing, to be 100% self-taught, really leaves so many gaps in your education that you're totally unaware of. You don't even know that you don't know. And so therefore, that's where the formal education comes. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. So I'm going to bring each one of you guys on one more time, because I want to say thanks. And I'm glad that you guys are here. And I want to do a quick screenshot of you guys. So I want you to smile and look perfect, maybe wave if you want to, but I want to do a quick screenshot. And I think that'll do it. Let's see. I like the thumbs up. Yep, got it. You guys, and all eyes were open. I'll send this to you guys later.
No blinking.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, I have a real quick trick to tell all of you. Real quick, if I could.
Okay.
About blinking. It's real quick. If you get somebody that is constantly blinking in every photo, I had a chick, I took like 18 photos and she blinked in every one. So what I did was I told her, okay, close your eyes and I'll count to 3. And I said, 1, 2, 3, open them. And I took them as she opened them. You can't blink when you're opening your photos. So I got it on the first shot. Try it. It works.
Awesome.
Thank you for that, Ray. Well, I want to thank you guys for being here. You are fantastic, wonderful people who are willing to share your knowledge, your experience. You've shared some things. You've been vulnerable in sharing some things that you may not want to share with just anyone, but you openly shared them here and the solutions that you came up with them. And so I really appreciate that. I think the viewers appreciate that. Thank you guys for your gift of time and appreciation and your love for other photographers.
You're very welcome.
Great.
It was
Thank
a
you very
pleasure
much.
being here
It
with
was
you.
an honor.
I
Thanks for having
appreciate it. You
Thank
guys
you
are
very
awesome.
much.
All right. Well, what a great panel. All of our panels are so good. And here's another example of them. These people, Kathy and Tammy and Ray, are representative of all photographers. We care about we care about the industry. We care about you. And every once in a while, I'll come across someone who says there's no one willing to help. I wonder if you're trying to find someone, because there are so many people willing to help. I should probably count how many people have just been on the show alone who are clearly showing that they're willing to help. And how many do you need? Not that many. So there are people who are willing to help. And when you see people like Kathy and Tammy and Ray doing it right here in front of you, there's proof. They care. They want to help you. And because they are fantastic people just like you. Creatives are wonderful, caring, amazing people. All right. So I've got a few things that I want to share with you before we close. Obviously, we do this show every single Monday, so I want to tell you what the next class is about, the next show. I also want to tell you about some announcements. For instance, the annual San Antonio Photography Tournament. For those of you here in San Antonio, this is number 11 that's coming up in October. And so I'm going to put that in the comment section real quick because I want you to be able to see more information about it. That should be coming up in your comment section right now about the 11th annual San Antonio Photography Tournament. So I'll put that on the screen so that you can see it. Let me take that off so I'm not covering any of it, but it's on October 22nd, and there are thousands of dollars of prizes. I'm not kidding. Somewhere we don't know how many because we don't have all the sponsors in yet. But we've had sponsors in excess of $10,000 total in prizes, all the way up to the most that we ever had. It was pre-COVID, that was $72,000, and we give all these prizes away that day. This is an instant gratification photographers challenge, meaning you come with your camera. We give you the list of categories. You go out to the beautiful San Antonio River and you photograph every single category you want to participate in. You submit your images, and during lunch, the judges are doing their thing, because after that, we're going to announce the winners, hand out the prizes, and give certificates to all of the winners. And when it's done, it's actually done. It's not a Facebook popularity contest to see who gets the most likes. No, the show's over at that point in time. It's one day, Sunday, October 22nd. This is the 11th annual. We normally have a little over 100 photographers show up for this fun event. This is not meant to see who the best photographer in the area is. This is for photographers to get together and do what they love with other people who love it too, with a whole lot of sponsors who are showing their love to you through their prizes. You're going to love it. Use that link that's in your in the post right now, so that you can get more information and get tickets. Now, for those of you who don't see the post, because every once in a while someone says they don't see the post, it's photofun.eventbrite.com. photofun.eventbrite.com. Now, as you know, we have the Portrait Prophet Show every single Monday. And of course, this Monday is no exception. So I'm going to tell you what the upcoming show is. I'll put that here on the screen. It's called Setting Boundaries and Avoiding Burnout. Now, I bet that title will tell you all you need to know about this one, because we photographers are wonderful, caring, great, amazing people. We are. But we care about some things a little too much, and our emotions get a little too overwhelmed sometimes. And sometimes we get to that point where we're done. We've had enough. Well, this show, we're going to cover that and what to do in that situation so that those things that are dragging you down stop. They completely stop. Now, that doesn't mean they stop forever. They sometimes rear their ugly heads every once in a while. But this episode is going to show you how to push them back down. Setting boundaries and avoiding burnout. That's what's coming up next Monday at noon. The Portrait Profit Show is noon every single Monday. We make one exception, and that's the second Monday of every month. Today is the example of that, where we have a panel and we bring them in. And the reason we move it to 6:30 in the evening is because it's easier to get panelists to come in on Mondays at 6:30 in the evening than it is to get them to come in at noon on Monday. So we changed the time to be able to do that. Please put this on your calendar. Setting boundaries and avoiding burnout. 1 week from today. That's August 21st, 2023 at noon, right here where you're watching it right now. All right. I hope that you've enjoyed this show. I hope that you have something that you can take away, something that you can use. Our fantastic panel of experts has shared their wealth of knowledge and experience, leaving us with lots of valuable insights and practical steps. We hope that this evening's discussion has inspired you and empowered you as you apply the tips that have been shared by our panelists. I hope that your journey towards your definition of success is filled with creativity, fulfillment, and prosperity. Thank you for joining us. And until the next time, keep capturing those beautiful moments. Thank you for dedicating time and sacrificing other important things in your life to grow in your knowledge on the business side of photography, because that is going to help you achieve the success that I believe and you believe you deserve. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I look forward to watching you grow. Thank you for your time and attention here today, and thank you for the efforts that you make for being such an amazing portrait photographer. I encourage you to like and share the Portrait Profit Show. Let other people know. Click that like button right now. Click that love button right now. Say thanks in the comments. We appreciate that, myself included, but so do the panelists. They gave you your gift of time. All I'm asking in response is tell them thank you in the comments right now. Before I end the show, tell them thank you, because they rock, and you do too, because the efforts that you're making are making not only your life better, but the entire photography community. Together, we help each other achieve our goals and make a difference in the world through our passion for portrait photography. For Landers Photography School and Digital Pro Lab, my name is Jim Landers, bringing you the weekly Portrait Profit Show with evolving content awareness and even fun as we unpack the mysteries of the business side of photography with tips and insights to help you with the struggles you deal with now, so you are constantly realigned to the path that leads to the success you deserve. Thank you for investing your time here at the Portrait Profit Show. Bye for now.